Hello and welcome to this Let's Draw. Today we're using a sketch I made a long time ago. I'm looking for the right ink right now because I'm going to ink it and color it. As you can see, I am using for the inking a light colored background. The dark colored background is to keep the color scheme right, because in the end this will be a dark picture and not a light one, but it's easier to make the line art on a light background, so there you have it. Line art was not that hard to make. I'm trying to be a little bit more detailed than I was before, and turned out it wasn't that hard. Inking is going better with the day, so I'm really glad with that. Well, the thin lines don't really have a lot of line weight, but the thick lines definitely have a lot of line weights, and I'm really happy with that. It's really good to have good line weights. Now I'm adding in the color of the figure. I've decided to color the figure first just because I was short on time that day, and if I had to color everything the next day, then that would mean problem for me. Just believe me, it would be hard on me. Well, I started on a sketch on this one, and on this Let's Draw, and I've decided to do this with every future Let's Draw. So, well, this drawing, everything you see recorded here, took about 13.5 hours. So, yeah, it takes a long time. Now, sketching doesn't take that long, but it's the least interesting part, believe me. It's quite boring. It's just the basic sketch. This is where you see the real thing being made. Now, as you can see, I'm adding the shadows. I'm using a layer mask for this, for these shadows. Well, Manga Studio 5 has layer masks, so why not use them? I'm trying out some new techniques. A layer mask is one of them. Using a palette instead of making blobs on screen is also one of them. I didn't use any palettes for the background, however, but I'm using it for the foreground. And I still picked the wrong color somewhere later on. I'm adding the shadows with the oil paint brush, and later on I will be making the shadows soft and detailing the shadow with both the oil paint brush and the watercolor brush, and I will use a blend brush and a fingertip brush on some places as well, just to make it all blend together. Yeah, the coloring was really hard to get right, but I think eventually I got the right color, and I could merge the shadow layers together and make it into a shadow that is good for the image, because those sharp shadows was not what I was going for. I wanted more soft shadows, definitely because it is a night scene, and I thought harsh shadows were going to ruin it. I probably know less about art than I think, so I'm not going to burn my fingers further on this. Anywho, this is like the technique I talked about earlier. Because the shadows are on a separate layer from the coloring, it means that you cannot use the oil paint brush to blend in the shadow edges. You can blend within the shadows, so the dark shadows on the lighter shadows, but within the edge of the shadows cannot be blurred into the main color. So that's where the watercolor, mainly the transparent watercolor, comes into play, and a little bit help of the blend because the watercolor doesn't always do everything the way I want. Moving on to the hair. Actually, I think I used too much light in the beginning. As you see here, I'm erasing a lot because it was so much and it was just overpowering, and that wasn't pretty. Adding in some highlights on the text and on the scars. Or maybe they're not scars but wounds. I don't know. Of course they need to be a little bit light. And move some little extras on the back to make it look good, because I thought something was off. So I changed it, like always. And then, what am I going to do now? Yes, I'm going to add the railing up front and later on the buildings. Finally. Well, the line art of the buildings is thicker than I wanted. Yeah. It just turned out like that. See me here adding the buildings with the tool from Manga Studio. Very handy tool to make perspective. And you see how thick these lines are. Just so thick. Well, luckily the whole painting is dark. Well, I'm calling it a painting, but maybe it's more a drawing. I don't know. Luckily everything is dark and going to be in color. So it's not that big of a deal, but you know, someone told me if your line art isn't right, you can slash on all the colors you want, your line art isn't right. And in this case, the line art isn't right because the foreground needs to be thicker than the background, but my brush just didn't want to go thin. Or maybe I'm just stupid. Look at those thick lines. Oh well. Well, at least I can say, like, this picture does not have a focus at all. And that can be a weakness, but at the same time, it's just something that makes you look away and think. I'm just rambling now. Oh well, moving on to side of the building, I decided to not make the balconies outside, but inside, because it looked better. Although I really think the dark picture, the overall dark picture, is going to make it better. Well, making in the moon, because moons are important. I forgot how to make a moon, so I redid it, and I did it wrong again. Well, at least I know how to use the blend tool, and it makes everything right again. Adding in some clouds. It's a bit more cloud than I wanted, but at that time I thought, yay, clouds! Let's add them! And of course a little bit of haze. Hey, a rainbow! And adding in the darkness of the buildings. And now you see what I meant earlier, because these buildings are going to be so dark that the line art doesn't really pop out. So color really makes it better than it was, but it's not actually the right way to make a good picture. Now the railing up front is yeah, I made it purple because I thought it was nice to just have something purple in there. There's a lot of purple in this picture. I mean, the shadows are purple, but still. I thought it was fun to have the beams purple as well, and a little bit of shine on there because the moon is either full or nearly full. It's just the way you look at it. And the place, I've changed the placement of the moon later so that it will look like it's full moon. Adding in some lights. I started out with orange lights, but I changed them into blue later, because I'm horrible at window lights, and I made it so hard on myself with such huge windows. I mean, look at them, they're huge. Oh well, the size of the windows gives it a more modern look, I guess. Some detail inside the windows, because if you make them big like this and lit up in a dark environment, then of course you're going to see inside the windows. Just look outside and take a sneak peek at everyone who dares to have their windows open and their rooms lit up. Yes, there are people who do that. Really. So adding in some shadows and a big lit up lift thing, which makes it probably a bit less modern and more futuristic. I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of torture device. And a horrible lift. I'm going to change that later. I just like the little stick figures in there. When I go outside in the night and I travel with a train and I look at these big business buildings, you see those little stick figures, people inside packing up their gears to go home. And adding a little either party room or conference room, I don't know. The earlier with the balconies in a residential place, because I put everything everywhere. And of course adding in some more shadow to the buildings to make them even darker. And my screen is pretty bright, so for me this looks really wrong because it's really black, and when I made it, it didn't look that black. But I guess that adds a little bit extra to the whole thing. And you see the moon is already in the new place. Because the clouds are now behind it, it makes it look like there's clouds in front of the moon, which means it could be a full moon. Which means the amount of light on the figure is okay. Decided to change the clouds. Took a long time to make them exactly the way I wanted. But now with the very dark background, the very dark sky, and those light clouds and lights everywhere, it looks just perfect. Adding some little highlights on the hair, because hair shines in moonlight. I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I've never looked at hair in moonlight. And finally changing up that horrible lift. Adding glow lights everywhere, of course. And doing the last bit of cleanup. And then we are already at the end result. And I hope you like it. And next time in 2 weeks, I have 2 ideas I could do. Post in the comment section below which one you want to see. Don't forget to like, comment, fave and subscribe for more videos. And click on the annotations to see my latest videos. Peace out.